start off with time to value. As we all know, a key part of any analytics project is really around how quickly you can get value out of the solution. I know we certainly talk about that extensively within Connexus when we're kicking off a new solution implementation or a new product project.
So hey everyone, I'm Dan, the CEO and co-founder at Cinchy. Before I cover the time to value, just really quickly, what the heck is Cinchy? There's really two components to it. It's this idea of what we call dataware, which is something that was actually predicted in the mid-'80s as something that is now really becoming not only possible, but simple. And the simplest way to think of it is imagine doing for data what the power grid does for electricity, where it provides it as a service where you can produce and also consume, and you're abstracted away from the complexities of nuclear power versus solar versus geothermal. You just plug in your device and it just works, and that's the inevitable future of data, and that's what dataware does. It essentially turns your data itself into the application. So it's a paradigm shift, and Cinchy is the leader and very much a pioneer in this new category of dataware. So we've been in the market for just over 3 years, and we have over 100 enterprise organizations, and most of them are actually in the credit union space. So it's an area that we know and we love, and many of you may have heard from Neil earlier talking about his journey. But the short answer to the question of time to value is near instantaneously, because what dataware is doing is it's simplifying essentially as anytime you need to buy an application, build an application, or integrate an application. And it's doing it because it's decoupling your data from your applications. Traditionally, they're very intertwined. So whether you're a builder of applications and whether you're bringing in a SaaS application, a custom build, or a packaged software solution that is running on-prem, whether you're acting as an integrator where you would traditionally use APIs and ETLs, whether you're an end user who traditionally is very removed from being able to interact with the data, you're limited to read-only reports at best, or an owner of data where you're trying to get control over that. That's what dataware is doing to simplify that. And the Concentra journey that you heard earlier is just one example that our customers go through. And you can see there, and if you remember Neil talking about the hackathon where over the course of 3 days, some reporting for loan solutions was fully automated, but that was the beginning of their journey. So every subsequent project basically builds on the projects of the past, further accelerating it. So you simply apply it as an accelerator to your project. So the benefit starts immediately as soon as you apply it to your project.
Yes, Dan, as the previous topic we looked at, has your team done any return on investment studies?
Return on investment studies? Yes. If you go to, sorry, I'm hearing a bit of an echo there. If you go to our website, there is a series of case studies that outline the ROI on a number of successful deployments. But I think the exact summary of that is it's essentially eating half of the cost and half of the time whenever you're buying, building, and integrating an application on average. In some cases, it's more. In other cases, it's less. But that's dataware as an accelerator. The reality is there are other benefits that are harder to get your head around enabling organizational intelligence, not after the fact intelligence, but real-time and operational. That's hard to turn into dollars and cents because essentially it means as an organization, you're a lot smarter. And the more you're using it for, the more connected your data is, you're essentially building out your company's brain, which is what you're seeing here. This is our own brain that has all of our company's knowledge as we use our platform to run our entire business.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I just wanted to interject here before we move on to the next round that Naveen made a good point in the chat that as we talk to a lot of credit union leaders, they think about time to value as the amount of time that starts when you make a selection of a vendor and you start the various integration activities and you get to your first set of insights, and that's when the game really changes and they start to accelerate some of the value that they see. So that time to value is one of the things that we hear a lot as a key criteria as to implementing this type of solution. So thanks to the team for that first round.
Technical architecture definitely is an important aspect, which is what we'll discuss next. Because clients need to take into account their performance of the application, availability, business continuity and disaster recovery, as well as cybersecurity when you look at cloud versus on-premise architecture.
So on the technical architecture, I guess the first question, which is definitely the theme of and the hot topic of today, is we've designed the platform such that it can run physically wherever you want. As well as the option to lift and shift and move it from one environment to another. Because if you think of your data like money, you want portability. You don't want to be held hostage by whoever ultimately is storing your data. So the platform can run completely on-prem, physical machines, virtual machines on kind of your standard stack. It can run cloud on any cloud provider. It can run in a hybrid environment, which is probably the most common, where you may choose to run the base platform on either or, but have it then in turn connect to really all sides. Because even if it's in the cloud, if you have on-prem systems, you're going to need to have a connectivity there. So that's the first thing. But I guess the other consideration when we think of architecture is dataware is a new paradigm. So I spoke earlier about how as a concept, what it's doing is for data what the power grid did for electricity by separating the data from the applications, both new applications as well as freeing the data that was today trapped inside of your existing applications, which could be SaaS platforms or otherwise. But one thing that I want to point out when you're starting to think of the overall architecture is don't confuse this with a data mart or a data warehouse or data virtualization or a data lake or a data lake house or a data fabric or a data mesh. These are all examples of technologies that are narrowly focused on just the analytics dimension to it. So they take copies of data from applications to enable reports and analytics, and that's powerful, but it doesn't actually fix the root issue of why data is fragmented in the first place. So the problem is every time you have to buy, build, and subscribe to a new application, you're back at the drawing board. You're chasing your tail. So that's the quick summary on how dataware is different from really data, insert buzzword here, in terms of the value proposition and what it's ultimately trying to solve for. So that's important when you think about it from an architecture perspective. And just to further reinforce that, just really quickly in kind of 60 seconds, our viewpoint on the evolution of data architecture, just so that you can put everything that I'm talking about here into context. So we started to build digital systems, individual applications that were amazing. You take paper-based processes and digitize them. Then we realized that you can get intelligence out of data. Only then did we realize that we've created data silos. So then we started to create these things called data warehouses, where we started with a top-down approach of take the data from the applications and put it into a central repository and try and build the reports off of that. It was hard to build the data model. It was hard to do the integration. So then we tried to reverse it. So this is what's called bottoms-up data warehousing, where you basically introduce this idea of data marts that then feed the data warehouse, that kick the can down the road a little bit in terms of getting that read-only copy of data in that central location. That was hard. So then we tried to virtualize the warehouse, where we're using virtualization technology to create essentially a virtual data warehouse, but similar problems still emerged. The data lake became popular a while ago, where you're taking raw data out of the operational systems and basically not worrying about organizing it. You can organize it later. But then if you do that, well, what use of that is if you don't organize it? So then we reintroduce the warehouse, but we source it from the data lake and we call it a lake house. And we're back at the drawing board, which is how do I build that model and how do I enable that? There's also the introduction of data centricity, data fabric as an alternative to the traditional integration, and data mesh. So these are hot topics in the world of data architecture today. But all of these are trying to solve a Rubik's Cube by solving an individual side at a time. And if any of you have played with a Rubik's Cube, you solve the red side, then you solve the blue side. Oops, you've unsolved the red side. So you're just spinning the cube over and over again. But if you actually know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, you can solve it in 3.5 seconds, which is the world record. And that's what dataware is doing, is it's solving the cube by blending these approaches into a unified platform platform, and this was an inevitable shift, and that's really what the technology is bringing to the table from an architecture perspective.
Next up, we'll talk a little bit about data integration. So credit unions have tons of different applications internally that they use and externally provided by third parties. So we'd love to hear through this session about how the different solutions provide in different sorts of integration. So, and kind of what's available out of the box, and then what requires kind of a custom connector. As I'm sure many are aware, there's lots of credit unions that have a bit of a legacy spaghetti environment going on with different solutions connecting through different APIs to other applications and things like that. So just love to hear about how your solution will address some of those.
So on the topic of integration, the main value proposition of moving to dataware is that you can actually stop doing integration. And you do that by introducing a new paradigm that's called data collaboration. So the traditional approach is every time you need to use data, whether you're trying to use it in the context of reporting or analytics, or you're building a new application, or you're subscribing to a new SaaS offering, you're always doing integration. But what if you could stop doing that, such that if you do need to do integration, you do it one last time and then never again. And then from that point forward, the data is now available for collaboration, not just collaboration, but real-time collaboration, in addition to being available to everyday data citizens who need to interact with that data, both view and change. So that's the idea of moving from integration to collaboration. Just to put that into perspective, so again, I'm back into the platform, and if I search our own fabric here, if I look for a data set called people as an example, you can see it's large because it has lots of connections to other data, and if I zoom out and move it over here, you can see all those links, and these are links that were essentially links like how hyperlinks work on the World Wide Web. They're not copies, they're not APIs or ETLs, so if you think of the cost of one integration, every one of these lines is that cost saved. So for our own use, we've saved about 2,980 such integrations. And if I go into this data set, because that's more than just a map, you can go into the data, what you'll see is it's a blend of data from multiple sources. So right now I'm looking at it in a tabular view, but you can see some of this data was originated inside of the Dataware platform, which again can run on-prem or can run in the private cloud. This came from another ticketing system. This record came from Salesforce. This record came from Salesforce. So you're weaving together this fabric of connected data sets where this people data set is just one data set, which itself is broken down into a series of attributes that can come from multiple sources. So you can see it was, while it was originated in Salesforce and modified, it was then later modified by other systems where they didn't have to integrate with Salesforce. They're plugged into Dataware. So that's the idea of decoupling your data from your applications, and that's just the history of a single record. That's a single data set, and that single data set is part of your connected fabric that essentially starts to build out your brain as you use it to deliver business capabilities, whether you're replacing spreadsheets or otherwise. So the integration that comes out of the box, because while you're using Cinchy and Dataware to ultimately wean yourself off of integration, you still need to do integration, of course, because you have your existing systems and you're not going to replace them. You need to connect them, protect the data, and augment them and extend them. So we provide an integration capability that is part of the platform. It's thrown in for free because the integration isn't the value, it's the end of integration that is, but it has the capability of doing bidirectional synchronization. It can be batch, it can be real time, it could be cloud, it could be on-prem, it could be hybrid. Everything from your favorite visualization tools to anything that supports REST or files, could be delimited files, XML files, could be SOAP. Pretty much any protocol that's out there that any platform will support is something that we're ultimately looking to enable connectivity on. And ultimately what you have to do is, when you're thinking about Dataware, is make a choice, because there's essentially two views. There's the traditional view, where you're designing your data to serve your apps, which is app-centric, or the new approach, which is flipping it on its head, where you're designing your apps to serve your data. The data is the first-class citizen, and that's what this is ultimately doing. But again, the idea of our view on integration is you should stop doing it, and the Dataware is the path to achieving that outcome.
Thanks, Dan. Real quick question for you, and I think I can kind of guess the answer, but like in traditional data warehousing, dimensional modeling is a key component to it. Obviously, a core dimension would be time. And I'm just curious, it looks like the Cinchy solution is more of a snapshot in time, or is there a way to factor in kind of time dimension within Cinchy?
Yeah, so think of the DataWare platform as a time machine for data, not just data that is originated from within the platform, but even data that you connect in. So if you take data from your core banking system and you take data from whatever Salesforce and you connect that in, well, right now I'm looking at the present, but on the bottom right, you can see a little slider bar. Well, you can literally just rewind. So I can go right back to the day we installed our own DataWare platform for our business, and you can see there's nothing on it except for Cinchy itself. But as I go forward through time, you can now see the evolution of our brain when we started to use it to build business capabilities. So this is just showing the interconnected network model, but the same is true for the underlying data. So being able to ask questions in the past, or being able to do what I like to call a wormhole query, where you can query almost removing time as a filter, which kind of plays with your brain a little bit. But the ability to have this integrity and auditability is the ultimate in terms of control and traceability. And again, you're doing this even for legacy systems. You connect an Excel spreadsheet to this. You're now getting this time machine capability on all of your data.
Next topic, we're going to talk about data governance. And the cliche in the data strategy is garbage in, garbage out. Insights derived from data are misleading in some cases, and they're even disastrous if the data cannot be trusted. So data quality, data validation, data governance are of utmost importance in any successful data strategy.
So yeah, governance, data quality, critically important. And just from my own experience, pre-Cinchy, virtually impossible to get control over if you try and kind of work around the fact that data is fragmented and trapped in all of these silos. So the idea of a unified data platform that is beyond just analytical use cases actually makes it possible to achieve, think of it as autopilot for data governance. Whereas you're building new business capabilities, it could be digital experiences for your customer, for your employees, you're doing it in a way that the quality is basically continuously improving because you're increasing the reuse of data because you're linking instead of copying. You're not moving the data around endlessly in loops over APIs and ETLs. And every data change is auditable and traceable and ensures privacy compliance and all these considerations that are typically impossible to do with any degree of consistency across applications. So the nature of DataWare as a concept is it enables truly federated governance. So if you think of organizing your organization's data, you're doing it across different domains, and those domains can have different owners and different stewards, and the platform gives those individuals control over that data so that they're managing access without copies, and it's built into the machine as you build these capabilities. And what that also enables is the move from application level data controls to actually data layer controls, so that you can limit what an individual, whether it's a member or whether it's an employee or a partner, can see down to literally a data cell level when you need to. You can limit what they can see a cell, they can edit the cell. Maybe you want them to edit it, but you want to enable or enforce approvals to take place prior to those changes taking into effect. And the ability to have confidence that no matter what experience someone is using, whether they're logging in through a legacy app or using an existing reporting tool or a future reporting tool, is those permissions will be the same. Whereas traditionally, every application, every reporting tool, every analytics tool needs to recreate its own view on who has access and who has control. So I showed you earlier how you can go into any individual piece of data. Like if I go back to the people data, again, the fact that it's tracking all those changes. So if I go back into that very same data set, and I'll actually just go ahead and make a change. So I'm just going to change one of these records here. So let's change this one. I'm just going to add a period at the end of the name as an example. So that change is now in the time machine. If I go to the collaboration log, I can see every change that was made, including the change that I just made, where I can then roll back. I can see the entire evolution of that. I can query it and giving me that ability to have that infinite control over it. And of course, like all live demos, I'm not sure what's happening right now. But also from a governance and data quality perspective, being able to oversee the quality across the platform as you're connecting more and more data to it. So what I have here is just a quick view that shows me all the different business entities for my business and all the different people in the business who have accountability and at the intersection where there are data quality issues. And I can track and trend this over time. I can click through to drill down and look at every individual data quality issue where those rules can be dynamically defined. So again, it's autopilot for data governance is the only way to do it at scale.
So the bonus round is really an opportunity for the presenters to really speak to anything that kind of differentiates their solution from the other solutions presented. So it's really an opportunity to showcase kind of what makes your solution unique and what makes it special compared to the others.
So for us, what I want to talk about is a question that we often get when they look at DataWare as a platform that unifies data, both the operational and analytical world, and kind of converges that, is, well, what does that mean to my existing systems? I've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, blood, sweat, and tears building out what I already have today, and everyone's at different places. Every organization has areas of strength and areas where they want to make change. So the idea is that you're not going to feasibly be able to replace what you've already built or what you've already invested in. If it makes sense to do that, then so be it. But if you're able to reuse it, even better. So the model here, and this is a little bit of more of a methodology than it is something that's specific to the technology, is the idea of app augmentation, where you're essentially plugging in DataWare to your existing systems to unlock that data so that not only can you get visibility into that data, run reports, get intelligence and insights and predictions, but be able to operationalize that data and extend that data with new capabilities. So as you're building new solutions for employees, new solutions for customers, maybe you're replacing spreadsheets and desktop tools that to mitigate the operational risk and get better visibility into that data in addition to getting better control over that data. These are all things that you need to build, and building by augmenting what you already have is a fast track to enabling transformation. So that's the idea of augmentation, and I'll show you just a couple of example use cases here. So this is just an example of using this app augmentation model in the context of augmenting your core banking system, where you're building new experiences for your customers, for your employees. You're enabling cross-application data sharing without having to build point-to-point integrations. You're eliminating the use of high-risk spreadsheets and desktop tools. You're simplifying and modernizing your IT architecture, reducing basically enabling organizational agility. This is second use case, but this is in the context of an HRMS, your HR systems. Maybe you're using Workday or PeopleSoft or others, but it's the exact same pattern. So this will look very similar to the prior slide, because it's the same idea as you're connecting in your existing systems using what we call last copy integration. Once that data is connected, it stays in sync and it's now available for users to use via the data browser. It's usable for all other applications to collaborate on, both read and write, and it's available for you to build an infinite number of experiences without ever having to move that data or integrate that data ever again. So that's the premise, and I want to show you just a quick example of how easy it is to build. If I can get the right screen here. Hopefully you can still see this, but while we were talking, I just built a very simple data set in the platform. I just called it sample companies. I gave it an icon, and I just put it in a domain called Sandbox. And I basically said, okay, there's a name, a street address, revenue, and I want to know the date of the revenue, and I want to know what country this customer is in, or this company is in, and I'm going to create a link to a data set that's already on the fabric. Now the rest of it is all calculated. So revenue in USD, it's basically calling a function to convert the FX rate using the date of the revenue and converting it from whatever the currency of that country is, and as well as doing intelligent address resolution, where you want to do a lookup based on the address. Maybe you also want to look for the legal entity identifier to help you with dupe detection. Maybe two companies have different names, but they're actually the same. So this took about 5 minutes to create, and I can connect this to my existing data sources. But for now, let me just put in a manual record. So I'm going to say we have Cinchy here, and notice that it's validating. So some of the fields are mandatory, but I'm actually going to put for the address, I'm also going to put Cinchy. And for the revenue date, I'm just going to go back and kind of pick a random date. Let's say this, and I'm going to pick, let's say, Canada. And I'm going to put in a number for the revenue here. Just put in the random number, but see these calculated columns here. So the revenue in US dollars, if I take the FX rate of July the 13th, so it has that awareness, and it will do a conversion as of that day, was 259,095 cents. And the address of Cinchy is 530. And the LEI, you can see it's basically done a search against the LEI database and pulled back the actual identifier, where if I plug that identifier in, it's now doing another retrieval where it's telling me all kinds of information about Cinchy. And I can do this for any company on the planet. And what I just built here can be used as, against your existing company and customer data to do validation and cleanup. But this is just an example of what you can do in about 10 minutes. The one thing that I want to leave everyone with, and I, like the others, am very appreciative of the opportunity to be here. So it's been a pleasure. And really good job by the other presenters as well. This has actually been awesome. But think of DataWare as a shortcut, as your fast track to transformation. So we talked about the power grid for data and the idea of that enabling accelerated transformation. So yeah, that's the, I guess, the one thing to think about is today you're building your own power plants every time you try and build a business capability, and DataWare makes it so that you can just plug into the grid, and that's huge in terms of simplifying, de-risking, and accelerating. And I just want to show you one last thing. This is back in our own environment, and this is a 360 view of a customer. Now everything I'm going to show you is fake data, because of course I'm not going to show you actual customer data. Our customers wouldn't appreciate that, but we have this very same information on all of our customers, and our customers have that on their customers as well. So here you can see just one hypothetical company, ABC Inc. as a customer. We have their bio, we have intelligence about the organization, we have the entire Cinchy team that's lined up to support this customer and ensure their success, including personality profiles that's using artificial intelligence to make those predictions. You can see the customer team and their personality profiles. You can see any related documents, every sales opportunity, any ones that were won or lost. And not only see, I can add new ones. I can change it. I can go to from the customer 360, I can go to the opportunity 360, or I can look at the leads and go to the lead 360. I can look at every order that they've placed and the total of those orders, agreement details, every engagement signal. So if they sign up for a newsletter, if they follow us on LinkedIn, I can look at health checks and NPS scores. I can see every project that's ever been delivered. I can see every support ticket, every dev ticket, every person that we've ever interacted with, every meeting that we've ever had with anyone at this, and view transcripts and recordings of that. Now this is just me viewing a customer, but the same is true of any entity. So if I go back and look for, let's look at employees as an example, the data set that I referred to earlier. So here's employees, and it's in our HR domain. So similarly to customers, I can go into the employee data set and see essentially our 52 employees, and I can see myself here. Well, now I can open up a 360 view of me as an employee. So it's 360, not customer, but 360 everything. Maybe you want 360 bill, 360 asset, 360 transaction. So here you're seeing 360 employee, where it's showing you everything about me, my bio, my personality, my career goals, my engagement signals, my out-of-office events, my performance history, my compensation, my options, my engagement signals, like literally everything. And that's what DataWare does, is it turns intelligence and allows you to put it in everyone's hands.